fewer troops will be coming home from Afghanistan than originally planned.
The president will soon announce a major shift. He wants to slow down the withdrawal of American soldiers amid growing instability in the region. Margaret Brennan joins us from the White House with the details. Margaret, what's the new plan President Obama is expected to announce?
Well, this was a tough call for the president because he had promised to bring most U.S. troops home by the end of his term. Now he's going to leave that current level of just around 10,000 in place for most of next year. And then by the time he leaves office, there will be 5,500 U.S. forces remaining at 4 key bases across Afghanistan.
Margaret, we know that that was not the original plan. What is behind the president's shift for Afghanistan?
Well, what we've seen in recent weeks is an explosion of violence in Afghanistan, and Afghan security forces have been struggling against a resurgent Taliban. That's who U.S. is training the Afghan forces to combat. But they also see a growing threat from the remnants of al-Qaeda, and even ISIS now has a toehold inside Afghanistan. So President Obama took the advice of some military advisors who say we need a more robust presence to make sure that we don't see Afghanistan fall into disarray after most U.S. troops leave. So that is why he's slowing it down. It's going to give his successor more flexibility to fight terrorism.
So what's the mission for the remaining troops in Afghanistan then?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
So what's the mission for the remaining troops?
Well, the White House says the mission won't change from what it is now. That is primarily to fight counterterrorism, but also to train, advise, and equip Afghan security forces. So the president has said the American war in Afghanistan is over. We are not in a combat role. However, U.S. forces are basically teaching the Afghans not only how to fight, but providing them air cover. You remember just a few weeks ago that tragedy in Kunduz where it was a U.S. warship that's believed to have fired on a hospital there, causing civilian casualties. So you do have U.S. troops in the war zone, though they are not officially in a combat role.
Yeah, but Margaret, some critics will argue that there is an open-endedness to all of this that is not necessarily in keeping with what the president himself said he would do. Is there a deadline, a new deadline for a complete drawdown?
Well, not an exact one on the calendar, no. What senior administration officials say is that over the course of 2016, U.S. military commanders will be able to decide the trajectory and the pace of the drawdown from that 10,000 to around 5,500. This is going to overlap with whoever takes office next. Whoever comes here to the White House after the 2016 election is going to have to make a hard call on what the U.S. role is going to be. But just looking at what's happening on the ground, keep in mind the word that people aren't saying here is Iraq, but that experience of the withdrawal of U.S. forces, some say too soon without a residual force in place, led or contributed to some of the chaos that you've seen in Iraq that also provided a vacuum enough for ISIS to take hold there. They don't want to see that happen in Afghanistan, and because of that fear of terrorism really taking hold from al-Qaeda, from ISIS, the administration factored all of that in, and the advice of military commanders and the Afghan government itself asking for more help, and came to this decision today. We expect the president to outline his thinking in a few hours.
All right, Margaret Brennan outside the White House. Thank you.